to the first ever AFL Asia How Good's Footy in Asia podcast. So I'm your co-host, Matty Gale. Joining me was Billy Krang, former Vietnam Swans captain. And our special guest this afternoon is one that is widely recognised within the Football Asia community and the wider community, and that's Paul Halliday, who's the current AFL Indonesia chairman and former Jakarta Bintangs president. Welcome, boys.
Thanks, Matty.
Thanks, Matty.
How you keeping, boys? Keeping fit?
Oh, fit and healthy here.
I wouldn't say fit. I put on this Swannies shirt today, and it's shrunk a bit from last season, that's for sure.
Yeah, rumour has it, Bill, that you've notched a few on the belt there. And the missus is telling me you need to lose a few kegs. Any truth in that?
There could be a bit of truth, but I'm not going to be peer pressured on social media to do those sort of things on behalf of my missus. Leave her out of it.
Now, Pot, you've been involved in Asian footy circles for a long, long time, and we'll go into that shortly. But how long have you actually been living in Asia?
Well, actually, next month's my 30th anniversary here in Indonesia.
Wow, it's huge.
So 17th of June, 1990, I arrived.
1990. And can you tell us, Pot, how did you actually end up in Jakarta?
Well, I was actually, I'm a drilling person, worked for a drilling contractor in Australia, actually Western Australia. Was out in the middle of the Never Never, and a mate of mine's wife rang up and said there was a job going in Indonesia to do a bit of troubleshooting on a project up in Kalimantan. So I packed my bags and thought, well, it can either be a holiday or a work experience. So I ended up in the jungle of Kalimantan on a project for a new coal mine. As I said, it was only a sort of month's troubleshooting job, and actually ended up staying. So, yeah.
That's not uncommon, is
it?
Yeah,
well, I did the same thing, Pot.
Yeah.
I was meant to go to Japan for 8 months, and 7 years later, I'm still here too. I don't know about you, Bill, but it's grabbed you like that, Asia.
2-week holiday in Saigon.
Yeah.
God knows.
Yeah, I think it happened to all of us.
Yeah.
Now, Pot, you're the godfather of the Jakarta Bintangs. Let's take us back to how the Bintangs are actually formed.
Yeah, okay. Going back 95, there was a few Aussie expats. We used to get together and have a few beers. We'd actually been doing some grand final events and that sort of thing, get-togethers, and we sort of thought, well, we can't keep doing this. We've actually got to kick a football around. So a guy by the name of Bruce Morgan, Kenny Allen, they were instrumental in getting it up and running. I'm sort of proud to be a founding member of that group. And, we used to have a little bit of fun here and there, kicking the footy around. We actually, the first ground we trained on was a police soccer ground. So we had a little bit of safety net there, but that was the best and closest place to the pubs we used to visit. So we thought that was the best idea.
Fair enough. Jumping forward, not just a little while, but decades, through the current kind of 2020 situation, mostly the COVID-19, how are the Bintangs actually looking on the ground? You might want to tell us how you were looking at the start of 2020 and how things are looking now. How's the club been impacted?
Yeah, well, I guess we take a step back at the end of last year at our annual general meeting. I handed over the presidency to Benny Giles. Benny is also a founding member of the club, been around a long time. And I thought it's probably fitting that Benny should take over. I'd been doing it for 5 years, and it's really not easy running a football club, as most of you would know. And at that time, I'd sort of was starting to get a bit tired. So Benny took over, and I stayed on as chairman of AFL Indonesia, just to look after the Indonesian guys and girls, I should say, because we're certainly getting into that now. So, like, things were looking up as far as a bit of new blood as a new president. Benny's got his ideas and that sort of thing. Expat-wise, we weren't looking too bad. We had probably 15, 20 guys. And then along come the good old virus. And unfortunately, we had quite a few expats leave. And not all Aussie guys. We like pretty much like every club. We have guys from all over the world that come and play our great game. And some of them become very good at it. So, like, yeah, we've lost quite a few of our expats. But fortunately, look, we've got a very strong base in our Garuda guys who can play football. So, expat-wise, yeah, we're down on numbers. Garudas-wise, still strong as ever. And, like, they'll make up the majority of our team for the Bintangs going forward.
Just on that part, we talked about local development there. Let's press into that for a little while. How much of a concerted effort have you made towards building local development? How long have you been doing it? And just give us a bit of an insight as to how that's all worked over time.
Yeah, like, obviously this has been going on for quite a while. I guess around 14, 15 years. And it was like, early days I was around the club, and then I stepped away because of business reasons. I needed to run a business, and really only came back when my son wanted to play in IC14. But, like, our development, yeah, it's been going 14, 15 years. There's been a lot of guys, a lot of dedicated expats involved to get our Garudas to where they are today. And, like, I class, like, a few of our Garudas as pretty much as good as anybody in Asia. So, like, we've been lucky enough that the Australian government have also worked with us through their volunteer programs. So we've had quite a few expats come as volunteers and help us out with the development of the kids, going to schools and that sort of thing. Actually, Chia, who's now with you guys over there, Billy, was a volunteer at one stage, and she ended up staying here as well. It's, yeah, just one of those things.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Just while we're on that local development part, you talked about getting into the schools. From memory, up until last year, you're in about 25, 30 schools, but you can get access up to 3,000 schools. So massive opportunities.
Yeah, we did an agreement with the East Jakarta heads of schools that we had access to all these schools. Obviously, financially, we're never going to be able to do 3,000. But certainly the 2030 we've been doing is a good start to put the base there, to get their own local competitions going and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Just one more on that. I know that you put in a mountain of work, and so did a lot of people, expats based in Jakarta. How much effort and time did you put in, and monetary, if you're willing to speak about it, to establish AFL Indonesia? Because there's a number of clubs in the pubs looking into getting themselves under an AFL banner. How's it all worked out for you?
Oh, look, like, for me, the time I was president, I had a lot of great guys around me who, like, dedicated themselves. In particular, like, we've got our development guys, our Indonesian guys that are paid to go around to the schools. We had a guy by the name of Jeff Gardner was up here with his wife at the embassy, and he was a stay-at-home dad. So he had quite a lot of time on his hands. So he'd get together with Boy Pasarivu, who's our head of development at that time, and they'd go out through the schools and get involved, the sports teachers and that sort of thing. So it worked out really well. But like myself, like I put my hard yards in, but again, you're only as good as the people around you. And to be honest, like Dave O'Shea, he was a captain for most of my time as president, and those sort of guys, MJ as coach, supported me to the hilt, mate. So I got to give a big thanks to my committee and those sort of guys for the way they got behind me. And to be honest, like sometimes you'd have your bad days, and they'd get around her and say, "Come on, Pop, get yourself back up off the ground. It's not that bad." So yeah, like if you don't have the good people, then you're probably not going to succeed. You got to have guys that put their heart and soul into it. For me, that's me. If I'm going to do something, I do it properly.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think you're I think you're being a bit modest there. Some of the efforts I've heard about and from some of the guys that you mentioned backing you up are pretty incredible. But very well done to all of you. It's an inspiration to clubs like us here in Vietnam to keep pushing forward.
Yeah, well, like you guys, Billy, the same sort of thing. You got Kero there, who's like dedicated to getting locals involved in football. Yourself, so like it's just the hard yards you put in.
Yeah, it is, and you guys inspire that in other clubs because we can see the rewards and help give us a bit of direction too.
Just from an AFL Asia perspective, Pot, look, we've also always considered Jakarta as in leading that space in local development. So I know a lot of other clubs, whether it be Vietnam or Cambodia, have been definitely inspired by what you guys have done at ground level. And it's magnificent for what we do with our work with the AFL that we can put some spotlight on clubs like yourself because that's what helps us get recognised and continues the funding down the track. So it's brilliant.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, enough of the back padding.
I'd seen her a beer.
Let's be honest. This is why you're here. You're relatively known as one of the more fiery attendants at any AFL Asia game or tournament.
President's meetings, all sorts.
I can't remember those.
This is probably not going to go well.
Can you run us through a couple of your greatest hits? I've got one come straight to the front of my mind, but I'll let you come up.
My greatest hits.
Maybe your top five.
Well, like Buntao, I guess. I love that place.
Yep.
We were lucky enough. I think it was 2016. We were invited over.
Yep.
It was a 50th anniversary for Buntao, for our soldiers being there. And for me, like I'm an Anzac sort of guy. I had cousins that fought in Vietnam, and so it has a special place. And when we were invited to Buntao, I thought, wow, this is great. So we went to the effort to send across a pretty good team, knowing that you guys would be into it. So it was good. It was good to have the veterans around us and that sort of thing. But anyway, well, like when the game got started, all hell broke loose. Like I'm running the bench and getting into a few people, and like you guys had this female boundary umpire who every time she went past me would say, "Why don't you shut the effing up?" Right? And like then I'd sort of say, "Well, who the F are you? And why don't you just run the effing boundary and leave me effing alone?" Right? We're playing a game of football. Anyway, like this banter went on all day. She didn't give in. Right? Well, she didn't know me because I never give in either. So it like it was a tough game of football. I know a couple of your guys went down early with some injuries, and like we battled all day. We were lucky enough to come away with the win that day. But the game was played in the Anzac spirit, and like to present one of the veterans with a Bintangs jumper on that day sort of was a good thing. But like you guys, hospitality was just unbelievable. You treated us really well, but that's what we'd expect from a great club like the Swans. I must say, like come 3/4 time, Doss had got a head injury and cut himself open. So he disappeared. Like, he's our captain, he's disappeared. So he's over the back getting some medical attention. I'm sort of trying to get everybody organised at 3/4 time. And the boundary umpire's still running past me, giving me shit. Right? I think it was a ploy by you guys. Certainly sound like. Anyway, so Doss comes back and he said, "Oh, I'm fucked. I think I've got concussion." Right? Yeah. And I said, "Well, mate, we still need you out there." He said, "No, I'm pretty well done." Well, it didn't stop me from going out that night, though.
Yeah, that's right. A few hours.
So yeah, like that's probably one of my greatest hits. I think I can't remember the girl's name that was a boundary umpire, Shazza or something like that.
Yeah, it rhymes with Shazza. Maz,
that's it. Maz. Yeah. Anyway, I think we did have a drink or two. I don't think it was that night. I think it might have been on another occasion, and we reminisced over the F's and C's.
Yeah. And that is always the way. And just one thing you touched on there, the effort that you guys went to, and it did show through in how seriously you took the game. That was appreciated by the vets there. They're not there to watch people pat each other on the back. They come to watch a good scrap on the footy field.
Yeah, a good hard game.
They didn't mind the scrap on the sideline either. That was very, very much appreciated. So
yeah, like that was the first time we made an actual Anzac Day jumper. That's the first time we'd done that, and
we both went for red and white.
Yeah, that was. I think we did tell you guys to turn your.
We did. Yes.
Jumpers inside out, but you wouldn't have that.
Well, I think we did at 3/4 time when we were down a couple of goals and trying to pick a way into it.
I think so. Actually, you're right. That did happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about one of the other greatest hits from Bali Masters? Was there an incident that may have occurred there?
Well, like it's probably not the first time I've been sent off in football. I bet I should go back to the Bintangs' first game. So we're sort of an average age of 40 odd. And Singapore come to Jakarta to play us, right? They absolutely belted us. I think we didn't have jumpers at that time. We had T-shirts with "Save the World" or "Save something" on them. Right? Somebody went to Block M, and they were all we could find. So anyway, like I'm playing in half-back flank or back pocket, I think, and they were resting their ruckman and on me. Right? So he's given me a chop to the throat. I thought, I can't take that. So I've whacked him. And typical, I whacked him, and the umpire seen me whacking me and said, "You're off, you're out of here." And I said, "Beautiful." I said, "I've had enough anyway." So that was probably my first altercation. It's getting sent off in Asia. Bali Masters, like Hinchy invited me to play for their over 47s team. So I played as a gecko. So I started on the bench, and after 5 minutes on the ground. And anyway, this guy, I lined up him. I'm in the forward line, and I went to sort of push off him, and he gave me a haymaker across the back of the head. And like same old story. Like I sort of said, actually this time I didn't retaliate first. Right? I said, "What the fuck's that for?" And he said, "Well, you're a such and such," and he whacked me again. So I thought, well, I'm not going to get whacked the third time, so I've whacked him a couple of times around the ears. And then the umpire's seen what's going on, and obviously the umpire just seen me again doing whack, and straight off again. So I thought, oh well, that's okay, and I'll just spend the rest of the game out, and I'll be in the next game. Well, actually, that wasn't the case. They suspended me for the tournament. And it didn't actually go over that well. Anyway, the next morning I sort of went up to the umpire that sent me off, and I said, "Listen, mate, you do know there was more to it than what you've seen." And he sort of said, "Well, I really don't care. You're not playing anymore." So that was the end of that.
On your playing ability, what I've heard a lot about, you're a forward that I'm surprised you're actually playing on someone, because what I've heard, you just float around the forward line, don't pick anyone up, and just kick goals. You're always at 50 metres clear in the space.
Well, that's sort of in my older days. So like the Lofty Cup especially, I sort of float around the forward line and get a lot of sort of easy kicks. None of the Garudas actually, they're scared to come near me. So that's a good thing. It gives me a lot of freebies.
But you've got some rivals in Asia, and that tends to come into meetings or on the field as well. I've heard that there's been a famous reenactment of a halftime rev up that you gave, and it was actually on Facebook on your own personal page. Going back a month ago. Firstly, I want you to give us a bit of background of the story, and if you wouldn't mind reenacting it for us, that'd be absolutely magnificent.
Well, I don't know whether I can reenact it, but I think it's certainly in the Bintangs. I'm pretty famous for me before game rev ups and halftime sprays. That particular one was against Malaysia. They were sticking us into it a bit. So I sort of got into a couple of them as they're coming in sort of at half time and told them they should be doing a lot better. I got a bad habit of if I pick somebody out and I just shake them by the jumper, right? But the boys actually, I didn't do it once in a rev up, and they were disappointed because they all sort of line up because they want to be sort of grabbed by the jumper and shooken up by the pot. So yeah, like that was against Malaysia. I sort of know if you actually want to see the halftime rev up that I did in my backyard to you guys out there, just go onto my Facebook and you'll see it there.
Righto, fair enough.
Fair enough.
There's too much swearing and cursing, so I don't want to upset people.
Maddie, do you want to jump into the making friends rather than making enemies question?
All right, so 2016-17, I think Bali won back-to-back Division 2, and Jakarta had always sort of punched above their weight, but without taking too many major scalps down. And there was talk about Bali maybe going into Division 1, and I think I was one of the people behind the scenes that, not that necessarily put the idea forward, but certainly said, look, if you want to become a bit of a powerhouse club in Div 1, Div 2, why don't you join forces? And we will accept that from an AFL Asia perspective, because we want to see as many competitive teams as we possibly can. It allows you to have your Div 1 and Div 2 as well, and allows you some of your locals to actually play at Div 2 level and sort of fast track their development. And it's turned into a really good situation for the club where you've had an enormous amount of success, whether it be at Asian Champs level or other tournaments as well. So can you give us a bit of an insight into how it all worked out between the Bali Geckos and the Jakarta Bintangs?
Yeah, like when I took over as president, I could never understand why Bali were going as Bali and we were going as the Bintangs when at the end of the day we're Indonesia. So I think 2015-16, we were down Bali for a game, Geckos versus Bintangs, and Ricky's always been very approachable, and Ricky and I and Hinchy Mayer and Harry, I think at the time, who was president, sort of we sat down and had a couple of beers, and I sort of said, well, look, guys, we'd be a lot stronger if we go as Indonesia. And that's where it sort of started. They actually belted us that day, so they sort of had a very good win, and we sort of went home with our tails between our legs. But that's, I guess, sowed the seed that, and Ricky and I, more than Hinchy, probably talked about it quite often. The next year, like 16, I think it was, we went back to Bali for another game, and we actually turned the tables and belted them. So it was sort of like, okay, well, maybe we should sort of look at going together. So it was just slowly, and I know, Matt, that you came in and sort of talked to both Hinchy and Ricky and myself about going as one. So yeah, like we'd be able to go as a strong team, have a second division. We could play our Indonesians and play some of our Indonesians also in first division. So that was pretty much how we're going. Like 2018, we sort of stepped that up a little bit more as trying to push across that we could go as one. And Hinchy, like, and I don't get me wrong, I love Hinchy, but he's sort of still reserved about and a very proud Gecko, and I understand that. I'm a very proud Bintang, but for me, if we want to ever do any well at champs, we can't keep going as Bintangs in first division and getting belted because we don't have the stocks, and they certainly can't keep playing second division. So anyway, like we played another game that year, and yeah, we give them a pretty big touch up. I think we won by 80 points, and Ricky said to me, he said, "Oh, we need to go together. You're right in what you're sort of saying." Hinchy was still pretty well sceptical of doing it, and it was right down to pretty much the wire to submit the team, and we finally got it over the line. And I think the first one I rung was you, Matt, and said, "We've done it. We're going as Volcanoes." So that was a pleasing moment for I think both clubs.
Yeah. Then you had the ultimate success. So the first year you went as the Indonesian Volcanoes. You came. I remember you toured quite a lot as the Indonesian Volcanoes that year, including a trip to Osaka for the famous Brian Lake Cup. But let's just go to the Asian champs. Your maiden outing as the Volcanoes, and you've come home with the chocolates, mate. So how satisfying was that for the first year of making that decision? It's all come to fruition for both clubs as a merged venture.
Yeah, that's probably the most one of the most satisfying things for me over the time I was president. The fact that we got it over the line, we joined forces, and we went there, and did come away with the win. So yeah, it was very pleasing.
Yeah.
While we're on the topic of the champs, I'd love to get your thoughts on a few areas, and in a kind of related way, I'm not sure if you boys can see this because you're on your phones, but the comments have been lighting up, so I'm trying to share a couple into the feed. What are your thoughts on the fly-in players for the champs and the shift of date from October into August?
Look, like, to be honest with you, we were accused of having some ring-ins and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, all those guys had played previously for the Geckos or played for the Bintangs. So you're always going to get this sort of talk behind your back about ring-ins and that sort of thing. Like, if people want to talk to me or talk about that, talk to me face, I'm quite happy to sort of give them some answers. They mightn't like my answers, but I'd give them some answers. So, look, for me, moving it from October to August, yeah, great. That will cut out a lot of the crap that goes on.
Yep. So you're a big fan?
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Always sort of have been. If you move it, and it was played in August previously, so for me, yeah, look, I don't have an issue with it.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
And one of the other topics that's popped up in the feed has been I don't think COVID-19 is as related, but the local quota rule, which is bounced
Hang
around.
on, I'm just seeing something on here about Sanchez.
We'll get to that next. We'll get to that next.
All right.
As well.
Go on.
Sanchez has been pretty active in the comments. You'll be able to
Well,
check
always.
them all,
I'm wondering where Alexis is actually.
She might be busy. Yeah. Apparently, it's Sanchez's birthday today, so I hope that.
Oh, happy birthday, Sanchez!
This podcast is making his birthday. What's your thoughts on the local quota rules?
Look, I'm all for a local quota. And the way it is now, it hasn't really worked over the last couple of years anyway. What Division 1? You're supposed to have how many locals? I think it was 2.
2, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and one on the ground at any one time. Well, from my observations, you wouldn't even know who the local players were in some teams.
Yep.
So I think we have to distinguish that a little bit better. For me, and there's different thoughts on it. I know how some clubs feel on it, and they're dead against it. But there's a few clubs, including the Swans and Bintangs, the Geckos, right, who are for it. I think the Cambodian guys as well. But look, if you're going to grow the game in Asia, you've got to have locals playing at the highest level, right? Like we've got half a dozen guys that can play Div 1, no problem.
Yep, you've seen it.
So just get out there, guys, and train up your locals. And don't say it's too hard, because it can be done.
Yep, 100%. Just trying to flick through the comments. This isn't the first mention, but would Branch Flog be the greatest nickname you've come up with in AFL Asia?
Yeah, well, I actually got a lot of traction with that. I was surprised.
Wait till you see these comments.
Like, he was annoying me, and I thought, like, you're nothing but a branch flog, right? And it stuck, right?
Yeah.
Even Sanchez thought it was great.
Yep.
He's one that's commented it. Sanchez has found out the branch flog comment.
Oh, has he? All right. Yeah. No, like the good old French bloke, like, he's one of the loudest. He's probably louder than me on the field. You hear him everywhere. He just doesn't shut up. No? And then he gets on Facebook and has a bit of a go on Facebook too. But no, he's like everybody. I love him.
Yeah, well done. So, like we sort of touched on before, the COVID situation is no good. There's been a few comments asking about champs this year, and obviously all that stuff is up in the air at the moment. It's good to see we might have some AFL footy at least on the TV in the coming weeks. But you guys in Jakarta have had a couple of years under your belt, and I think in the back end of this year you'll be very happy that you've done it with the Lofty Cup. Can you tell us a little bit about it and how it's been going and maybe how it's going to go? Domestic footy is obviously going to be pretty important in the next little while.
Yeah, the Lofty Cup, we've been doing that. We had something going back a few years. It was the ANZ Cup, and they dumped as a sponsor, so we named it after, the Lofty Cup is named after one of our founding fathers as well, which Peter Lofty Elliott. He was unfortunate to die in an aeroplane accident here in Indonesia. So God bless you, Lofty. Still love you. But yeah, our Lofty Cup, we got that up and running. I think this is probably the third year, and it's seriously competitive. Seriously competitive. Like everybody sort of at the start of the season, it's just have a bit of fun and this sort of thing. Well, once you get on the ground, those wide eyes open up and away you go. So I've been lucky enough to play in the Dingoes. So we've won quite a few Lofty Cups. And we usually divide it up to 2 seasons in 1 year. So I was lucky. I won 2 premierships in 1 year. So the local guys on Saturday afternoon, they love it. They turn up in droves to play, and trust me, they play it pretty hard because I've been knocked about pretty badly by them. So we actually play on synthetic, so it's even harder for an old guy like me when you land on the ground.
That's the photos I've mainly seen as you on the ground, Pop.
Yeah, actually that photo you've seen me on the ground, that little guy, I got the ball out to him and he kicked the goal, so I reckon that was a pretty good goal assist.
Yeah, well, picture tells 1,000 words when you're on the ground. Just on that, I'm obviously pretty heavily involved with the Saka Dingoes here in Japan. There's been some name changes with your team, so the Dingoes still around. What's the teams that are currently existing at the moment?
Well, I think just at the moment, like the Dingoes were sort of winning too much, so we've converted. The first season we were called the Cobras, right? And then we went to the Dingoes because we didn't like the Cobras sort of thing. And Dingoes won a few flags, and then we thought, well, people are starting to arc up about us Dingoes winning everything, so we'll go back to the Cobras and win another one as the Cobras.
What's the other team's names?
So we got the Slugs, right? The Slugs are pretty famous. Team Big JB's the godfather of the Slugs, unfortunately he's moved across to Singapore, so we missed him standing at full back for the Slugs. And then we've got the Tigers. The Tigers are always pretty competitive, not so much the Slugs. The Slugs sort of shoot themselves in the foot on a Friday night by getting on the piss and sort of not turning up. Like the first game this year, their coach was actually out on the piss with me, and also the captain. So I was smart enough to go home about 11 o'clock. I thought I'd done the damage already. And I think the coach, he ended up home about 1 o'clock in the morning. But their captain, he didn't go home at all and failed to turn up the next day for the Tigers. So, yeah. Oh, sorry, the Slugs. Sorry for the Slugs. So, yeah, that was a bad day for them.
You're probably not going to be able to see this comment on your phone, but Ricky Laurential's just jumped on. Thanks for joining us, Ricky. He's asked when the Geckos come to play in the Lofty Cup, which is not. It's going to happen this year, obviously. Are you going to have a draft, or are you going to sign up the free agents? And then I guess who are going to be the Dingoes or the Cobras targets in
Well,
that free agent
yeah,
period
that's a
of
good
yours?
question, actually. So, actually, Bryce come and played in our second game this year, and yeah, was pretty good at it.
So he qualifies.
So, what we do is we have a draft normally, and it's pick an expat and then pick an Indonesian. So we flip a coin to see who goes first pick, and then it just goes along the line, back and forth.
Yep.
So we usually run out of expats pretty quickly, and then we're just picking Indonesians because there's a hell of a lot of them around. And then after we've picked our teams, right, whoever was last pick gets the next guy that walks through the gate.
Ooh.
Yeah. Okay. Works.
So this free agent thing Ricky's talking about, yeah, I'd love to have it because I know Ricky wants to come and play for the Dingoes. And actually, Bryce wanted to play for the Dingoes also, but unfortunately it wasn't our pick that day, so he ended up, I think, playing for the Slugs.
Someone's at the door. Go and answer it, please. I might have to hold for dude. Someone's at the door. Just hang on.
Yeah, no worries.
Matty was actually about to run into the Tribal Talks section, which is has been started on the AFL Asia website. I'm just going to jump on the website now so I can start punching through the questions. And
we were talking about actually games, local games this year. Big JB, give him a mention, and the Batam Bats. We played up there the end of last year, I think November last year. It was Bali, Jakarta, and the Bats from Batam. So JB's formed a club called, even though he lives in Singapore, they travel across to Batam to play some games. So that was a great weekend, Bali, Jakarta, and the Bats. And Bali actually won the day. Swanee actually played for the Geckos that day, was pretty good. And so we're actually already talking about obviously doing that again at the end of the year. That's if you can travel for JB from Singapore to Batam. That's sort of still a bit up in the air. But like I think if Asian travel opens up a little bit more, we sort of may be able to have some other clubs sort of turn up some other countries.
Yeah. That would be the type of thing that we all need to be kind of looking for now, because there'll be pockets that come through okay at times, and then pockets that might be struggling.
Yeah. Like Singapore would probably want to come across and play for sure. You guys might come down. Like it's just a quick boat ride across from Singapore to Batam.
Yep. If the Wombats engagement is anything to judge by in the comment section of this podcast, then they'll be there with bells on, perhaps a new uniform too. I'm not quite sure what's going on there.
All right.
Yeah.
What's the boat ride to Batam or Batam, whatever it's called?
Batam. It's about a 40-minute boat ride across.
Beautiful. All right, Pop.
So you would.
You go.
So you would have to sort of do immigration in Singapore and then get the boat across to Batam, do immigration again. It doesn't take very long, sort of thing. So, yeah. And the airport's 20 minutes from city centre. The actual ground's pretty close to the airport.
Right. All right, Pop, we're actually going to do the first ever tribal sport rapid fire round. Tribal Sport, AFL Asia's preferred apparel provider. We also can announce today we've actually got a new sponsor signed up as we speak in the last couple of hours. So OFX are going to be a new sponsor with AFL Asia. So thanks for coming on board. Right.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, good news. The rapid fire round. Pop, dogs or cats?
Sorry, go again.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Favourite holiday destination?
Anywhere where there's beer.
Biggest arch rival, club-wise?
Club or person.
Give us both.
Malaysia and Digger.
They're appropriate. Okay. Scruncher or a folder?
A what?
Scruncher or a folder? When you wipe your...
I'll go a scruncher.
I would have taken you as a folder. You're pretty organised. All right. Favourite band?
Favourite band? Deep Purple.
Ooh. Smoke on the Water?
Yeah, that's the one.
All right. Bill, have you got any rapid fire questions?
No, I've got a longer question, which would then finish me up. I meant to ask this earlier, but can you explain the nickname Pot for anyone who doesn't already know?
Okay, well, when I got back involved in the club, I sort of tried to make my own nickname because sometimes they just don't work out for you. So anyway, like I had Carlos for a while. What else I had? Oh, I had Flat Top, which they even made me a little badge up as Flat Top. But like some people sort of tend to think I'm a bit of a dictator when it comes to running the club, and they don't get much of a say. So anyway, Chad Lone this night at training had a bit of a gutful of me, and he said, "You're like Pol Pot. You're just a dictator." So yeah, Pol Pot.
Perfect.
Couple more for me, Pot. If you had one last meal, what would you eat? What's your favourite go-to?
Dim Sims.
Dim Sims. You'd go Dim Sims over a steak?
Yeah, I'd go Dim Sims and a Chico roll.
Jesus.
Well, you can't get them in here in Indonesia. So, like, seriously.
Oh, well, you probably answered my last question. What do you miss from back home the most?
What do I miss back home most? Pretty easy. My son and my mum. My mum's she's 92 years old, still fit and healthy. So yeah, I love those two. I love my family.
Yeah. Favourite AFL team?
Well, black and white.
No good, mate. No good. All right.
Yeah, well.
Wrap things up. You're in. Before we thank the Pot for being on board for our first ever How Good's Footy in Asia podcast.
Sorry?
You on channel?
Yeah, like I'd just like to thank both of you guys. Two of the nicest guys in AFL Asia. Billy, I miss having a beer with you. Same with you, big fella. But I like to just say to everybody out in AFL Asia footy land, we're going through a pretty rough time at the moment, and there's a lot of people you probably don't know are suffering. So give your mate a ring. If you haven't heard from him for a while, give him a ring. You know, I've had a couple of sort of down times myself, and back up and firing now. And it's all about your friends. Get around your friends and look after them. As I say, like I had a guy actually ring me a couple of days ago. I haven't heard from him for probably since he left Indonesia 3 years ago. And he just gave me a ring and said, "How you going, mate?" So it's not that hard. Like, it's not going to cost you much if you've got WhatsApp or anything like that. So, yeah, do it, guys.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Special message. Thanks, Pot. That'll finish us up. So thanks for everyone for tuning in to the first ever How Good's Footy in Asia podcast. We've got a few people in mind. We're actually trying to contact Evan Spargo. He might be our next one off the cab rank. So thanks for joining us and thanks for your support. And anyone who wishes to watch it or promote who you'd like to listen to next, put it in the comments section below. Thanks for joining us, Pot, and thanks, Billy. Bang, bang.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thanks, Maddie. Thanks, Pot. Thanks,
Cheers,
guys.
boys.
Cheers.
Bye.
Gotcha.